Recognizing psychopathic behaviors. Have you ever encountered someone who initially seemed extraordinarily charming, captivating, and seemingly perfect in every way, only to later reveal troubling, manipulative behaviors? At first, their charisma and apparent sincerity might feel irresistibly genuine. They seem to understand you profoundly, resonating deeply with your emotions, hopes, and dreams. Such individuals can rapidly establish strong emotional connections, making you believe you've finally found a rare, special bond. Unfortunately, beneath this compelling facade often lurks something deeply unsettling. Psychopathic behavior, characterized by manipulation, deception, emotional emptiness, exploitation, and irresponsible impulsivity, is more common than most realize. These individuals often hide in plain sight, initially appearing charming and trustworthy, but their true intentions and harmful traits soon emerge, causing emotional turmoil and severe personal damage. Identifying psychopathic behaviors early can significantly protect your emotional and psychological health. It empowers you to establish effective boundaries, trust your instincts, and implement proactive strategies to maintain your well-being. This understanding is critical as it prepares you to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics safely and effectively. Now let's delve deeper into these hallmark traits, beginning with the first and most deceptive sign: superficial charm and initial manipulation. Sign 1. Superficial charm and initial manipulation. Superficial charm represents the first and often most deceptive hallmark of psychopathic behavior. At the outset, psychopaths can seem exceptionally charming, attentive, and charismatic, effortlessly winning trust and affection. Their ability to quickly assess and mirror your desires, values, and emotional needs creates an illusion of compatibility and deep connection. You might find yourself quickly drawn into their orbit, believing you've finally encountered someone who truly understands and appreciates you. However, this initial charm is meticulously crafted and strategically employed to manipulate and control rather than genuinely connect. Psychopaths excel at presenting themselves in ways precisely tailored to your expectations, interests, and vulnerabilities. They actively listen, observe closely, and collect detailed information to refine their persona and behaviors, ensuring maximum appeal and minimal suspicion. One particularly common strategy employed by psychopaths during this initial phase is love bombing, an intense, overwhelming display of affection, validation, and attention. Through constant compliments, affectionate gestures, thoughtful surprises, and seemingly endless communication, psychopaths rapidly intensify emotional bonds. Initially, love bombing feels flattering and deeply fulfilling, satisfying your emotional needs in ways few others have. Yet love bombing is neither spontaneous nor genuine. Instead, it serves calculated purposes. Primarily, it rapidly diminishes your emotional defenses, making you vulnerable and emotionally dependent. Additionally, love bombing fosters positive emotional associations, conditioning you to associate the psychopath's presence with feelings of happiness, validation, and emotional fulfillment. Consequently, your emotional reliance increases, significantly complicating future efforts to objectively evaluate their behavior or establish boundaries. The charm and affection offered by psychopaths are always conditional and fleeting. Inevitably, once they achieve sufficient emotional control, their behavior shifts abruptly, particularly when confronted with boundaries, disagreements, or independence. Warmth and affection quickly become withdrawal, irritability, or outright hostility. This sudden behavioral shift, known as emotional whiplash, is deliberate, creating confusion and emotional destabilization, thereby reinforcing emotional dependence and control. Psychopaths often strategically exploit your empathy and compassion, presenting themselves as vulnerable or victimized to further manipulate your emotional responses. They carefully craft narratives designed to elicit sympathy, encouraging you to lower your guard and overlook inconsistencies or troubling behaviors. Over time, you may find yourself prioritizing their perceived emotional needs over your own, further solidifying their emotional hold and complicating objective assessment. Additionally, psychopaths frequently use mirroring techniques to strengthen their deceptive charm. They mimic your interests, preferences, and even your mannerisms to create an illusion of similarity and compatibility. Initially, these mirrored behaviors feel comforting and validating, fostering a false sense of deep connection. However, these tactics are purely instrumental, intended to facilitate manipulation rather than establish authentic bonds. It's also important to recognize that psychopaths often target people who are naturally empathetic, generous, or nurturing, knowing these individuals are more susceptible to manipulation. By identifying and exploiting these qualities, psychopaths increase their influence and control over their victims. They are adept at reading emotional cues and respond with precisely timed reassurance, praise, or comfort to further deepen the emotional attachment and dependence. Moreover, psychopaths are typically very skilled communicators. They master the art of persuasive speech, using eloquent language and compelling arguments to convince others of their sincerity and goodwill. Conversations may seem inspiring and deeply meaningful initially, as psychopaths know exactly how to appeal to your ideals and aspirations. However, closer observation often reveals subtle inconsistencies, exaggerated claims, and contradictions that hint at the manipulative intent beneath their eloquent exterior. Protecting yourself from superficial charm and initial manipulation requires heightened awareness, emotional vigilance, and proactive boundary setting. Always remain cautiously optimistic and skeptical, particularly when intimacy escalates rapidly and seems excessively perfect. Genuine emotional connections typically develop gradually, build upon mutual trust, consistent behaviors, and shared experiences. Trust your intuition. Persistent unease, anxiety, or doubt, despite outwardly positive interactions, often signals manipulative intent or hidden agendas. Your subconscious mind frequently detects inconsistencies, manipulative patterns, and emotional deceit before conscious awareness fully recognizes them. Pay careful attention to these intuitive warnings, taking them seriously and acting accordingly. Clearly establish and consistently enforce personal boundaries. Healthy relationships naturally respect and adapt to boundaries, viewing them as essential components of mutual respect and emotional health. Psychopaths, conversely, typically view boundaries as obstacles or challenges to overcome, responding negatively or aggressively when confronted. Observing responses to boundaries offers critical insights into an individual's true character and intentions. Sign 2: pathological lying and psychological manipulation. Have you ever found yourself second-guessing your own memories or perceptions after conversations with someone close? Perhaps you've experienced situations where you're absolutely certain about what was said or done, yet the other person insists otherwise with convincing confidence. This unsettling experience isn't mere confusion. It's a deliberate tactic known as pathological lying combined with psychological manipulation, and it's a common hallmark of psychopathic behavior. Pathological liars don't just fabricate stories occasionally. They lie consistently, compulsively, and strategically. Their deception isn't solely driven by avoiding trouble or sparing feelings, as might be the case with typical lying. Instead, psychopaths use lies as powerful tools to control and manipulate their environment, shaping perceptions and maintaining dominance over others. Their fabrications often mix truth with falsehoods, making them particularly believable and challenging to detect. The complexity of their lies is intentionally crafted. Psychopaths are adept storytellers, capable of vividly recounting fictitious experiences with remarkable detail and conviction. These stories might range from minor embellishments to elaborate narratives about their past, achievements, struggles, or relationships. Such falsehoods serve multiple purposes, eliciting sympathy, admiration, or trust, and establishing a persona tailored to meet their objectives. One particularly damaging form of psychological manipulation employed by psychopaths is gaslighting. This technique involves deliberately challenging and distorting your memories or experiences to make you doubt your own reality. They may insist that events you clearly remember never occurred, accuse you of misinterpreting conversations, or trivialize your feelings and concerns as exaggerated or irrational. Over time, consistent gaslighting leads to profound self-doubt, eroding your confidence in your own perceptions and judgment. Gaslighting creates psychological dependency. As your trust in your own memory and reasoning diminishes, you become increasingly reliant on the psychopath for validation and direction. Your emotional autonomy weakens, making it easier for the psychopath to maintain control and influence over your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. Another manipulative tactic closely related to gaslighting is triangulation. Psychopaths use triangulation to create conflict and confusion among the people around them. They subtly or overtly share negative or misleading information about others, instigating misunderstandings, jealousy, or competition. For example, they might tell you negative things about a mutual acquaintance while simultaneously speaking poorly of you to that person. This manufactured conflict isolates you, making you emotionally dependent on the psychopath as your perceived ally and confidant. Psychological manipulation extends to emotional exploitation as well. Psychopaths skillfully identify your emotional triggers, vulnerabilities, and insecurities, exploiting these to their advantage. They might feign empathy or sympathy at strategic moments to gain trust, only to withdraw emotional support abruptly, leaving you vulnerable and confused. This emotional whiplash creates instability and emotional dependence, ensuring that your emotional state remains under their control. The impact of pathological lying and psychological manipulation can be devastating. It erodes your self-esteem, leaving you feeling uncertain, anxious, and insecure. You may constantly question your decisions, behaviors, and perceptions, fearing that your reactions or interpretations are flawed or irrational. This internal conflict further solidifies the psychopath's control as your reliance on their approval and validation grows. To protect yourself effectively, understanding and recognizing these manipulative behaviors is critical. Stoic philosophy provides valuable guidance in navigating these challenging dynamics. Stoicism emphasizes emotional discipline, rational observation, and clarity in distinguishing between external influences and internal control. You cannot control another person's tendency to lie or manipulate, but you can control your reactions, boundaries, and emotional responses. When dealing with suspected pathological lying, document your interactions meticulously. Keeping clear records of conversations, promises, and agreements provides objective reference points to verify reality when confronted with conflicting narratives. Review these records regularly to maintain clarity and reinforce your trust in your own perceptions and memories. Trusting your instincts is paramount. Persistent feelings of unease, confusion, or suspicion often indicate manipulation, even when you cannot immediately identify specific lies. Your subconscious mind frequently detects inconsistencies and manipulative patterns before your conscious awareness does. Pay attention to these internal warning signals and take them seriously. Seeking external perspectives is equally important. Discuss your experiences and concerns with trusted friends, family members, or professional counselors. External viewpoints can validate your feelings, provide clarity, and help you recognize manipulative behaviors objectively. They serve as a vital counterbalance to the isolating effects of psychological manipulation. Establish and maintain clear personal boundaries firmly and consistently. Boundaries help safeguard your emotional autonomy and self-respect. When psychopaths encounter clear boundaries, their reactions often reveal their manipulative intent, frustration, aggression, or attempts to undermine your limits. Observing these reactions provides crucial insights into their true nature. Additionally, fostering emotional independence strengthens your resilience against psychological manipulation. Cultivate internal sources of validation and self-worth rather than relying exclusively on external affirmation. Emotional independence empowers you to approach relationships with balanced judgment, clear boundaries, and heightened awareness of manipulative behaviors. In conclusion, pathological lying and psychological manipulation represent profound threats to emotional well-being and personal autonomy. Recognizing these behaviors early and responding proactively through documentation, boundary setting, seeking external validation, and cultivating emotional independence significantly mitigates their damaging effects. Awareness, clarity, and emotional resilience serve as powerful tools in protecting yourself from manipulation and preserving your psychological health. Sign 3. Lack of empathy and emotional depth. Have you ever shared something deeply personal, expecting empathy and understanding, only to receive a detached or oddly mechanical response? Perhaps you've expressed vulnerability, sadness, or pain, but the other person's reaction felt superficial, forced, or completely absent. This dissonance isn't merely an awkward interaction. It often indicates a profound lack of empathy and emotional depth, hallmark traits of psychopathic behavior. Psychopaths have a unique relationship with emotions. They can recognize, analyze, and even mimic emotional responses with astonishing accuracy. Yet they fundamentally lack genuine emotional empathy. Unlike typical individuals who naturally share and feel the emotions of others, psychopaths experience emotional interactions as detached observations rather than heartfelt connections. Their emotional engagements are performances designed to elicit specific responses or achieve personal objectives rather than genuine expressions of shared humanity. Initially, this emotional deficiency might not be immediately evident. Psychopaths are skilled at imitating empathy through carefully chosen words, gestures, and facial expressions. They can convincingly replicate sympathy, concern, or joy in appropriate situations, making it difficult to detect their underlying emotional hollowness. However, over time, subtle inconsistencies and anomalies become increasingly apparent. For instance, psychopaths may respond to emotional situations in ways that feel strangely out of context or oddly intellectualized. You might notice their reactions to serious emotional disclosures or distressing events lack genuine warmth or authenticity. Their responses might sound scripted, overly logical, or detached, suggesting that they're reciting learned behaviors rather than genuinely engaging emotionally. This lack of genuine empathy significantly impacts relationships. Psychopaths are incapable of truly connecting emotionally with others, resulting in interactions that are inherently superficial and transactional. Relationships with psychopaths often feel emotionally unsatisfying or incomplete, as genuine intimacy requires authentic emotional reciprocity, something they simply cannot provide. One alarming manifestation of this emotional deficit is the psychopath's indifference or insensitivity to the pain and suffering of others. While most people instinctively feel discomfort or sorrow when witnessing others' distress, psychopaths can remain entirely unmoved. In some cases, they may even exhibit amusement, irritation, or annoyance if another person's emotional experience interferes with their personal agenda or comfort. Another troubling aspect of psychopathic emotional deficiency is their propensity to exploit others' vulnerabilities. Because psychopaths view emotional expressions as weaknesses or opportunities rather than genuine experiences deserving compassion, they are adept at identifying and manipulating emotional vulnerabilities for personal gain. They may deliberately provoke emotional distress, intentionally triggering insecurities or fears to assert control or dominance. Moreover, psychopaths often weaponize emotional disclosures shared in moments of vulnerability. Information disclosed during intimate conversations, meant to foster connection and trust, can later be used against you as a tool for manipulation or control. This exploitation of trust in emotional intimacy underscores their profound emotional indifference and calculated manipulation. Recognizing and navigating interactions with individuals lacking empathy requires heightened awareness and careful emotional management. Stoic philosophy offers practical guidance in effectively addressing these challenging relationships. Stoicism emphasizes emotional clarity, rational observation, and maintaining internal equilibrium despite external emotional turmoil. First, develop heightened emotional self-awareness. Recognize and trust your instincts when interactions consistently feel emotionally superficial, forced, or unsettling. Persistent discomfort or a sense of emotional emptiness during interactions often signals underlying emotional deficiencies or manipulation. Second, clearly distinguish between genuine emotional reciprocity and superficial emotional performances. Genuine empathy is typically consistent, spontaneous, and contextually appropriate. Emotional performances by psychopaths, on the other hand, often appear rehearsed, exaggerated, or contextually mismatched. Observing subtle cues, such as inconsistencies between verbal expressions and nonverbal cues, can help identify manipulative emotional performances. Third, establish and maintain strong emotional boundaries. Boundaries are essential in safeguarding emotional well-being and ensuring emotional interactions remain healthy and authentic. Clearly communicate emotional limits and expectations, remaining consistent and firm when these boundaries are challenged or violated. Fourth, cultivate emotional independence and resilience, reducing reliance on external emotional validation and developing internal sources of emotional strength and self-worth significantly mitigates emotional vulnerability. Emotional independence empowers you to approach relationships with balanced emotional judgment, clear discernment, and heightened awareness of potential emotional manipulation. Additionally, seek external emotional support and validation. Sharing experiences and concerns with trusted friends, family, or mental health professionals provides crucial emotional reinforcement and validation. External perspectives help counteract the isolating and destabilizing effects of emotional manipulation, reinforcing emotional clarity and strength. Documenting emotional interactions can also provide objective references to validate emotional experiences and perceptions. Keeping detailed records of emotionally charged interactions helps maintain emotional clarity, providing concrete evidence when confronting manipulative emotional behaviors or inconsistencies. In conclusion, recognizing the profound lack of empathy and emotional depth in psychopathic behavior is crucial for safeguarding emotional well-being and maintaining authentic emotional connections. Developing emotional self-awareness, distinguishing genuine emotional reciprocity from manipulative performances, maintaining clear emotional boundaries, fostering emotional independence, and seeking external emotional support are essential strategies for effectively navigating and mitigating the emotional impacts of psychopathic relationships. Emotional clarity, resilience, and vigilance remain your strongest protections against emotional exploitation and manipulation. Sign 4. Parasitic lifestyle and systematic exploitation. Have you ever encountered someone who consistently relies on others for resources, support, or favors, while rarely reciprocating or showing genuine appreciation? Perhaps you've noticed they effortlessly transition from one source of support to another, never truly becoming self-sufficient. This behavior characterizes a parasitic lifestyle, one of the core traits often associated with psychopathic individuals. Psychopaths exhibit a consistent pattern of systematically exploiting others. They treat relationships not as partnerships built on mutual support and respect, but as opportunities to extract resources, emotional support, social connections, or financial benefits. Their interactions are typically calculated, aimed explicitly at gaining maximum personal advantage with minimal personal investment. Initially, their exploitation may appear subtle or innocuous. It often starts with minor requests or favors that seem reasonable or trivial, borrowing small amounts of money, needing temporary accommodations, or asking for occasional emotional support during challenging times. Early in the relationship, these requests might be framed as genuine needs or temporary setbacks, eliciting sympathy and cooperation from others who perceive them as honest and deserving of help. Over time, however, the demands grow increasingly frequent and significant. What began as occasional assistance quickly evolves into persistent expectations. The psychopath becomes increasingly dependent, continuously drawing upon your resources without displaying genuine attempts to reciprocate or achieve self-sufficiency. Their persistent reliance and expectation create a draining dynamic, leaving those around them emotionally, financially, or socially depleted. Psychopaths skillfully identify empathetic, generous, or compassionate individuals, those most likely to respond positively to requests for help. They leverage these inherent qualities, exploiting kindness, generosity, or a sense of obligation to further their own interests. Psychopaths may employ manipulative strategies such as guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail, or fabricated crises to reinforce dependency and ensure continued access to resources. Financial exploitation is particularly prevalent. Psychopaths frequently engage in reckless spending, impulsive financial decisions, or chronic irresponsibility, relying heavily on others to mitigate consequences or support their lifestyle. They might repeatedly borrow money without repayment, incur debts expecting others to settle them, or fail to contribute financially to shared responsibilities, placing undue financial stress and burden upon those around them. Social exploitation is equally damaging. Psychopaths often leverage social networks, connections, or reputations to benefit personally. They may actively seek introductions, favors, or opportunities through acquaintances without genuine reciprocity or appreciation. These relationships become unidirectional, where benefits flow exclusively toward the psychopath, while those providing support rarely receive genuine acknowledgement or support in return. Emotional exploitation involves systematically draining others' emotional reserves. Psychopaths consistently demand emotional attention, validation, and support, particularly during their self-created crises or struggles. However, they rarely offer genuine emotional engagement or reciprocation. Emotional interactions become transactional, with the psychopath extracting emotional resources while providing superficial or minimal emotional investment in return. Psychological and emotional harm resulting from systematic exploitation can be profound. Individuals frequently experience exhaustion, resentment, frustration, and diminished self-worth. Consistent exposure to exploitative behavior erodes trust and self-confidence, often leading to emotional burnout and reduced capacity to establish healthy, balanced relationships elsewhere. Effectively addressing and mitigating the impacts of systematic exploitation involves recognizing exploitative patterns and establishing clear boundaries and expectations. Stoic philosophy offers valuable guidance in navigating these challenging interpersonal dynamics. Stoicism emphasizes clarity of thought, emotional discipline, and maintaining internal equilibrium regardless of external manipulative attempts. Firstly, maintaining heightened awareness and vigilance is crucial. Recognize and document exploitative patterns and behaviors clearly. Note frequency, context, and specifics of requests or interactions that consistently drain emotional, financial, or social resources without adequate reciprocity or acknowledgement. Objective documentation provides clarity, validating experiences, and facilitating proactive responses to exploitative behaviors. Secondly, establish clear, firm boundaries and expectations. Clearly communicate acceptable limits regarding financial support, emotional availability, or social resources. Consistently enforce these boundaries, particularly when challenged or violated. Psychopaths may react negatively, becoming aggressive, manipulative, or dismissive when confronted with established boundaries, further highlighting their exploitative intent. Thirdly, prioritize emotional and financial self-care. Recognize that you are not obligated to continuously support another individual's persistent irresponsibility or exploitative behaviors. Develop strategies to safeguard emotional and financial stability, including seeking external support, reducing or limiting interactions with exploitative individuals, and prioritizing personal needs and well-being. Fourthly, seek external validation and support from trusted friends, family, or professional counselors. External perspectives provide essential emotional reinforcement, validation, and practical guidance, counteracting the isolating and destabilizing effects of systematic exploitation. External validation helps reinforce boundaries, clarify interactions, and strengthen emotional resilience. Lastly, cultivate emotional and financial independence and resilience. Developing internal sources of validation, confidence, and self-worth significantly mitigates vulnerability to systematic exploitation. Emotional independence empowers individuals to establish balanced, reciprocal relationships founded upon genuine mutual support and respect. In conclusion, recognizing systematic exploitation and parasitic lifestyles is essential for maintaining healthy interpersonal relationships and safeguarding personal well-being. Heightened awareness, clear documentation, firm boundaries, proactive self-care, external validation, and emotional independence represent essential strategies for addressing and mitigating exploitative behaviors. Clarity, vigilance, and emotional resilience remain powerful tools in protecting oneself from systematic exploitation and maintaining healthy, balanced interpersonal relationships. Sign 5, impulsivity and refusal to accept responsibility. Have you ever encountered someone whose life appears perpetually chaotic, marked by impulsive decisions and constant instability? Perhaps you've observed repeated patterns of reckless behavior, from impulsive spending to sudden job changes or unexpected relationship decisions, all leading to significant disruptions. Coupled with this impulsivity is an obstinate refusal to accept responsibility for the consequences of their actions, a defining characteristic of psychopathic behavior. Psychopaths consistently exhibit chronic impulsivity, characterized by spontaneous, poorly considered actions, driven by immediate gratification rather than thoughtful deliberation. This impulsivity is often rooted in a relentless pursuit of stimulation and excitement, driven by their intolerance for boredom or routine. They might regularly indulge in high-risk behaviors, financial irresponsibility, sudden relocations, abrupt relationship shifts, or impulsive professional decisions without considering long-term outcomes or impacts on others. This reckless behavior inevitably results in turmoil, financial instability, emotional distress, and strained relationships. However, psychopaths characteristically refuse to acknowledge their role in creating these consequences. Instead, they consistently externalize blame, attributing their failures or negative outcomes to external factors such as circumstances, luck, or other people's actions. This refusal to accept personal responsibility significantly hinders their capacity for self-reflection, learning, and genuine personal growth. Psychopaths expertly portray themselves as perpetual victims. Their narratives consistently emphasize external mistreatment, misunderstandings, betrayals, or unfortunate circumstances. They adeptly manipulate perceptions, garnering sympathy, support, or assistance from others by portraying themselves as misunderstood or unfairly treated. Such manipulations further deflect accountability, ensuring continued emotional, financial, or social support despite their irresponsible behavior. Emotional volatility frequently accompanies this impulsivity and irresponsibility. Psychopaths exhibit dramatic mood swings and unpredictable emotional responses, often reacting aggressively or defensively when confronted about their actions or when facing consequences. These abrupt shifts, ranging from charm and affection to hostility or withdrawal, further destabilize relationships, causing confusion, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion among those involved. The combination of impulsivity, irresponsibility, and refusal to accept accountability can significantly impact relationships and personal well-being. Those close to psychopaths frequently find themselves bearing the emotional, financial, or practical burdens created by their reckless decisions. Partners, family members, and friends may experience persistent stress, exhaustion, resentment, and frustration, continuously working to mitigate the consequences of the psychopath's behavior. The psychological and emotional toll of engaging with such individuals is profound. Continuous exposure to their irresponsible actions and blame-shifting behaviors erodes self-confidence, promotes self-doubt, and fosters feelings of inadequacy. Individuals often internalize responsibility, mistakenly believing they are somehow responsible for the psychopath's choices or the chaotic outcomes that ensue. Effectively addressing and mitigating these impacts involves a clear understanding and proactive management of interactions with impulsive, irresponsible individuals. Stoic philosophy provides valuable insights and practical strategies for navigating these challenging dynamics. Stoicism emphasizes rational thought, emotional resilience, clarity of perception, and disciplined responses to external influences. Firstly, clearly distinguish between what is within your control and what is not. You cannot control another person's impulsivity or refusal to accept responsibility, but you can control your reactions, boundaries, and emotional responses. Emphasizing this distinction empowers you to maintain emotional stability and clarity despite external chaos. Secondly, maintain meticulous documentation of interactions and behaviors. Recording instances of impulsivity, irresponsibility, or refusal to accept accountability provides concrete evidence to counteract manipulative narratives and blame-shifting attempts. Documentation offers objective reference points, reinforcing your understanding and perception of events. Thirdly, establish firm and consistent boundaries. Clearly define acceptable limits regarding emotional, financial, or practical support, and communicate these boundaries explicitly. Enforce these limits consistently, particularly when challenged or disregarded. Psychopaths frequently react negatively through aggression, manipulation, or emotional outbursts when confronted by firm boundaries, further validating the necessity and appropriateness of your limits. Fourthly, prioritize proactive self-care. Recognize that you are not obligated to perpetually manage or mitigate another individual's impulsive behaviors or the consequences of their actions. Develop strategies to safeguard emotional, financial, and psychological stability, including seeking external support, minimizing interactions, and focusing on personal needs and well-being. Additionally, seek external perspectives and support from trusted individuals or professional resources. External viewpoints offer critical validation, reinforcement, and practical guidance, countering the isolation and self-doubt fostered by manipulative dynamics. Support networks help clarify interactions, reinforce personal boundaries, and bolster emotional resilience. Lastly, cultivate emotional independence and resilience. Developing internal sources of validation, confidence, and self-worth significantly reduces vulnerability to external manipulation. Emotional independence empowers individuals to engage in relationships with clear judgment, maintaining healthy boundaries and balanced emotional responses regardless of external instability or chaos. In conclusion, recognizing impulsivity and refusal to accept responsibility as hallmark traits of psychopathic behavior is essential for safeguarding personal well-being and maintaining healthy interpersonal relationships. Distinguishing between controllable and uncontrollable factors, meticulous documentation, firm boundaries, proactive self-care, external support, and emotional independence represent critical strategies for effectively managing interactions and mitigating emotional impacts. Clear perception, disciplined responses, and emotional resilience remain powerful tools in navigating relationships characterized by impulsivity and persistent irresponsibility. Conclusion: understanding and protecting yourself from psychopathic behavior. Recognizing the hallmark traits of psychopathic behavior, superficial charm and manipulation, pathological lying, lack of empathy, parasitic exploitation, and impulsivity paired with a refusal to accept responsibility is crucial for safeguarding your emotional, psychological, and financial well-being. Each of these characteristics individually poses significant challenges, but collectively, they create a profoundly destructive dynamic capable of causing lasting harm. Awareness remains your most potent defense against manipulation and emotional exploitation. By understanding these behaviors clearly, you empower yourself to identify early warning signs, enabling proactive intervention and self-protection. Maintaining clear boundaries, developing meticulous documentation of interactions, seeking external validation, and fostering emotional independence and resilience are essential strategies in mitigating the damaging effects of interactions with psychopathic individuals. Stoic philosophy offers invaluable tools and practical guidance for navigating complex interpersonal dynamics. Its emphasis on rational thinking, emotional discipline, clear perception, and deliberate action equips you to maintain stability and clarity, even in the most chaotic relationships. Stoicism encourages recognizing the distinction between factors within your control and those beyond it, enabling focused efforts on personal responses, emotional regulation, and proactive boundary setting. It's essential to trust your instincts and observations. Continuous discomfort, confusion, or emotional turmoil within relationships often indicates underlying manipulative or exploitative behaviors. Validating these feelings through objective documentation and external perspectives provides clarity, reinforces self-confidence, and strengthens emotional resilience. Seeking support from trusted friends, family, or mental health professionals can also significantly alleviate emotional and psychological stress, providing practical advice, validation, and emotional reinforcement. External support networks counteract isolation and manipulation, helping you maintain clarity, enforce boundaries, and sustain emotional well-being. Ultimately, your emotional, psychological, and personal well-being should remain a priority. By recognizing psychopathic traits early, adopting proactive management strategies, and prioritizing self-care and emotional independence, you significantly reduce vulnerability to emotional exploitation and manipulation. Clear perception, disciplined emotional responses, strong personal boundaries, and supportive external relationships remain your most powerful resources in protecting yourself and fostering healthy, balanced interpersonal relationships.